Hello, everyone. This is Dr. B from Steps to the Future, coming to you with another college and career conversations with Dr. B. However, before I introduce our guest and bring her on the screen, I want to share a couple of scholarship opportunities for students. I know one of the most difficult things in students going to school is how to pay for it. So on my Instagram account, I do put up different scholarship opportunities, and I just wanted to highlight a couple of them for you. So the first one, let's see if we can get this up here. So this one is, let's see, let me get this up here. Okay, so this one is the Walton Woods Project 2021 Live Deliberately Essay Contest. This is based on a quote from Henry David Thoreau. It is due February 21st, so that's coming up soon. It is open to students ages 14 to 18. So please make sure you go to this prompt that you see, this URL that you see here, and check it out. You can find out all this information by going to my Instagram account. So another one I'd like to show to you. Okay, let's see if we can pull this one up. Another one I would like to show to you. So this is another scholarship opportunity. Doodle for Google Scholarship. Now, you know, when you're on Google and you see those great graphics at the beginning of the web page, once a year, Google has a contest for students in grades K through 12 where they are able to design their own Google banner. The theme for this year is I Care for Myself By. This is so important because we know during this time of COVID how mental health is crucial and important for all of us. This is due on March 4th. And as you can see on there, there is the URL for all the additional information that you need. But really, take a look at it. There may be someone you know who has some artistic talent, who's very creative. So make sure they have the opportunity to do this, because a national winner will receive a $30,000 college scholarship. In addition, their school or the nonprofit organization that they represent will receive a $50,000 technology package. You know, then you'll also get some Google hardware and some fun Google swag. And there are a couple more layers of this. So again, Doodle for Google Scholarship due March 4th. And the last program I want to share with you, do you know any young folks that are interested in writing, that are creative about what they do? Princeton has a summer journalism program. It is geared for juniors. That's why it's in bold. And there's a special reason why it's for juniors only. Some of the criteria is you have to have at least a 3.5 GPA unweighted. You have to have an interest in journalism. That doesn't mean you have to necessarily want to be a journalist, but have a strong interest in creative writing and want to learn more about it. It is income-based. So they are looking for students from families that have approximately a $60,000 family income. That can be through also free and reduced lunch if the student receives an ACT or SAT fee waiver, or first gen, which is a priority. So again, those are some of the criteria in order to apply. They do take up to 40 students. And again, only the class of 2023. That's because at the end of the program, you are assigned, or actually during the program, you are assigned an adult to work with you during your senior year in college, under college advising. So there will be someone that will be assigned to you from this Princeton Summer Journalism program that will help you with your college applications throughout your senior year. If you're interested, the URL is there on the screen. So please pass this on to students who may be interested in writing, and let them know. The application is due on February 28th. So please get that in. So those are 3 opportunities I wanted to share with you. And you can always follow me on Instagram and find out more opportunities for you. And you also get to see my wonderful animals there and some other things. So, again, tune in and learn some new information. Okay, with that being said, I am going to take us to the next segment where we will come back and you will get an opportunity to, whoops, I did something crazy here. You will get an opportunity to meet our guest this evening. Be right back. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming back and for staying with us. And please, those of you that are out there watching, please make sure you share this with people that are out there. And for those of you who are watching this on the replay, we'd still love to hear your comments. And you could always share it out after you watch it on the replay. So today, I would like to introduce my guest to you. I am so thrilled because I really didn't know. I don't know how I missed this, but I didn't know Tara grew up in the same state that is my home state. So that is so interesting. Tara, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. So, folks, bear with me while I give you a little bit of information about Tara. So, Tara grew up in Rhode Island and moved to North Carolina a year after graduating high school with the ambition of going to college. Shortly after her move, Tara joined the U.S. Army Reserves as a parachute rigger and started work in the hospitality industry. During her time in hotels, Tara found great success and joy and was recruited to work for the Fayetteville, North Carolina Chamber of Commerce, where she worked for 8 years. After her time with the chamber ended, she returned to hotels as a director of sales. After having success in North Carolina, Tara returned to New England to expand her career in hospitality. After a few years in the Boston area, working as a business travel sales manager, COVID hit and Tara was furloughed. During that time of uncertainty, the Rhode Island native decided to take a few college courses. After making the decision to enroll full time, she was laid off permanently and she has since devoted her time to her education. Now, Tara is one semester away from obtaining her associate's degree and has plans to continue her education at a 4-year institution. Tara is also a wife, a mother, and has 2 Yorkie dogs, Charlie and Oscar. She is also passionate about mental wellness and staying active. Tara, welcome to College and Career Conversations.
Oh, thank you so much. I was like, wow, that's a lot of things.
Yes, I know sometimes when you hear people talking about you, you go, "Ooh, that's me? That's kind of neat."
Yeah.
That's kind of neat. So Tara, let's dive right in. So first of all, I did not know, like I said, that you are a Rhode Islander. So tell me about what high school did you graduate from? See if we have anything in common there.
So I grew up in a place called Woonsocket, and that was the border of the Rhode Island and Massachusetts. That was right there on the border. So I graduated from there. And it's interesting because usually when I meet people, especially after I moved down to North Carolina, I would just say, I'm from Boston because because it was hard to, where's Rhode Island? You would get a lot of that. So I'll just say, oh, New England, or I'm from Boston. So it's quite possible that that's the reason why that connection was never made. But how amazing,
I
two
know.
people from our small but mighty state.
Yes. I grew up in Rhode Island, in Providence and then East Providence. All my teaching career was all in East Providence. So I'm very familiar with Woonsocket.
Yes.
So yes, and got an opportunity to work with all the school counselors in that district. So definitely. So tell me, so what made you leave Rhode Island and come to North Carolina?
So there's always been something in me that I wanted more. I wanted to be able to see more. I wanted to be able to do more. And myself and my sister, we were raised by my mom, single parent with 2 girls. And I knew that there were going to be certain things that I would not have a full opportunity to do. I knew that I would be limited. And I knew that if there was anything that I wanted, I really had to push for it, whether it be advocating for my myself, but I really wanted to be able to push for what I knew that I wanted to do. And I remember when I was in high school, it was like a college fair, and they said, well, what do you want? And I said, I just want to be able to, I want to get dressed every day and just, look good and, walk the hall, walk down the hall. I want to have an office. I want to travel. I want to see the world. And, and it was at that moment I kind of realized that in order to do that, I might have to leave where I grew up and leave the only place I'd ever really known. What's also interesting is I was accepted into Johnson & Wales University,
Okay.
which is in Providence, as you know,
Mm-hmm.
but I was not able to attend. So I was just trying to think of, okay, how else can I get my education? What can I do? Maybe I'll take a year off and, work and save money. That's, the common thing. Oh, I'm going to take a year off. I'll work and save money.
Yeah.
And an opportunity came to move down to North Carolina. So I took it. And that's where a lot of life happened for me. I moved down there. I was 20. 20 years old, moved down to North Carolina, just trying to figure out life, figure out myself, and being able to accomplish my goals, accomplish my dream. I just kept going. And one opportunity led to, another opportunity, and then school gets pushed back, and then another opportunity, and then it's presented again. And, and I really just rode that wave until I decided at one point, I think it was almost a year or two, and I was like, that's it. I'm joining the Army myself, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to just have this taken care of, so that way I can get my degree. So that's how the whole thing started. I mean, as you said in the intro, it's like it's a journey. It's a marathon.
Definitely. And you have an admirer in the audience. So someone is telling us that you are so inspiring. Oh, that's sweet. That's sweet. And we have another person that sending you some love. So that's Jan Williams. Jan is my cousin. Hey, Jan, it's good to see you. Haven't seen you in a while. So yes, Tara is definitely inspiring, and we need to throw her a little bit of love for living her truth. So you're in North Carolina, opportunities come up. Tell me about being a parachute rigger. Because for people that don't know, Fayetteville, North Carolina is a military town.
Yes.
We have Fort Bragg here, which is one of the largest in terms of population military bases in the United States. It took some getting used to for me because I never lived in a military town before. So Tara, how did you become a parachute rigger of all things?
It was actually kind of a funny story. At least it's funny to me now. Maybe not then as I was going through it. But I decided, I kept having these dreams. I was at a point in my life where things were just, everything was going wrong. I mean, if you could think of it or name it, was happening to me. And I remember very clearly one night, I had a dream of me full gear running in the woods. The next night, the same dream. And I said, okay, let me go and see what this is about. Let me see if there's anything here. So I went and I spoke to you. As you said, Fayetteville is neighboring Fort Bragg. So there are definitely recruiting stations there, people that you can talk to about joining the armed forces. I met with the Navy. I was like, no. Marines, I was like, no. And I just made my way. And then finally, when I was speaking to the Army recruiter, I said, I can do this. And I took the test. And I remember when I took the test, very shortly after that, they were like, okay, well, here are some options that we can have for you. You can either leave in 3 weeks or you can leave in 3 months. And as I said, at that time in my life, I was like, there's nothing holding me back from leaving in 3 weeks. I got rid of everything in my apartment.
Wow.
The only thing I was concerned about was finding a good home for my dog at the time, and I did. And at that point, I was just like, okay. But the reason why I chose being a parachute rigger is because when I was there and you're going through all of your testing
Mhm.
and everything, you get a list of jobs. And I was like, well, what does this one do? And they're like, oh, well, it's involves the different areas of aerial delivery, and you'll be jumping out of airplanes, and there's maintenance, and there's
Mm.
personnel, and there's this, and there's that. I said, okay, I'll do that one.
Ah.
And I remember after they were like, well, are you sure? And it's a lot of work. And I'm like, yeah, I'll do it.
Oh my goodness.
I want to be able to challenge myself to the level of
Mm.
that is needed, the level of responsibility, the level of attention to detail that is required of that position in the military. I mean, you literally have the work that you do, you can't cut corners. You
No.
have to be able to do everything 100% fast, but at 100%,
Mhm.
because what you're doing is other people that you don't know, they're putting that parachute that you packed on their back.
Mhm.
And they're trusting that the person who packed that chute did everything right, paid attention to detail, and that they knew that they could jump and that chute would open. And I said, I know that I can do that. I know myself enough to know that I can hold that responsibility. And that's how I became a parachute rigger.
Oh my goodness. That has to be one of the So did you jump out of planes or you did? Oh my goodness.
I
Well,
did.
oh my goodness. Every time I see something on television about somebody jumping out, or of course, here you see it all the time. I'm
Mhm.
like, oh, I don't know if I could do that.
Well, I said the same thing while I was in the air. After all of my training, I'm like, what am I doing? But and I remember when I called my dad, and then I called my mom, and I told them what I did. I joined the military. I'm leaving in 3 weeks. This is what my job is going to be. I'm going there, and I'm going to airborne school. And my dad said, "What? Hold on a second." This was after September 11th,
Mm,
so I was going with the full understanding of what the rest of my responsibilities could possibly be.
right.
And when my dad asked me, a lot of what you see in the commercials with the parents having conversations with their children as to why they want to join the military, that's 100% happened to me. He said, why do you want to do it? And I said, there's no reason for me not to.
Mm,
I need the structure of the military. I need to show that this is something that I can do. I know myself to know that there are values that I know that I can bring to the military, to the job, but I also knew that there were holes within me that I needed the military to fill.
mm.
And when I explained that like that to my father, he got it. And I said, okay, now can you help me tell mom?
Oh my goodness, such a story. When I talk to people here and often ask them, their affiliation with the military, because so many people here are affiliated with the military in one way or another. Um, I hear similar stories. The structure of the military, the ability to go in and kind of find yourself
Yeah.
and figure out what your next steps will be while also doing good, while also learning skills, learning a possible career. So I hear that a lot. I guess it's just so funny because the time that I knew you when you were living here, I had no idea.
Mhm.
I had no idea. So I'm learning something new this evening too, folks.
I think that's one of the best things about it is that it kind of teaches other people to not really take things for face value. You hear that expression like "don't judge a book by its cover," and people have looked at me and they said, "You're in the military and you've done this and you've done that." And I said, "Yeah." I like being the person that you don't think of that that did this thing and had this incredible experience. And I remember somebody saying to me, but how? But like, I look at you now and you like to, I'll get my hair done and wear makeup and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I said, if you've ever slept in the woods, if you've ever done anything like that, the first
Yeah.
opportunity you get to spoil yourself, you take it. And so there are things that now I certainly don't take for granted, because I know, what it's like to go without.
Right.
And when you are able to have that opportunity to somewhat provide for yourself or provide a comfort that we take for granted. I mean, like a hot shower,
Yes.
that is taken for granted. And to be able to just say, I am very grateful for everything that I have that is around me, because I've had it stripped from me.
Right.
When you're going through that training process and
Mhm.
everything, and then, things, as things progress, obviously things do get better, but there's parts of you that you joined and they left, but it
Mhm.
was filled with something that was better.
Okay.
So I'll
Okay.
take that.
Okay. We have a comment here from one of our audience members. Thank you so much, Debelina, for joining us. And she says, "Thank you for being so candid and inspiring." This truly is. It truly is. Like I said, I'm learning a different side of you that I didn't know when you lived here.
Mhm.
So this is pretty good. So in the mornings I tend to walk Cape Fear River Trail with one of my relatives, and many times we see the young soldiers out there on that trail, because the whole trail in the section where we are, if you go up and back, it's 8 miles, and I think some of them do the full 8 miles, but we see them out there with full gear on, going up and down the inclines on those trails, and we're just always amazed
Mhm.
at the work that they're doing. So we see them as inspiring, but I love what you're saying, because it's so important. Young people, when they're at a crossroads, they don't always know um, how to like safely fill those holes, how to safely grow up and figure out what their next step is. So that is one benefit of the military. I mean, it comes with other things, but that is one benefit of the military, is that it allows people a place to find out who they are, to grow up and to find out what their path is going to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
Tara, how long did you stay in the military?
I was in the military. I was in for 4 years.
Okay.
And I actually have been, it was tough getting discharged. I was discharged due to I'd gotten an injury,
Okay.
and I just didn't heal back at 100%. I was not at 100%,
Mhm.
so that took an emotional toll on me, because here I was mentally prepared to do what needed to be done at the drop of a hat and have this career and this life in the military. And then
Mhm.
all of a sudden that's taken. And so you're like, gosh, not again, another hurdle, another roadblock. How am I going to get through this? And it took a lot. It was very emotionally taxing. What can I take from the military and really apply to life? Well, everything.
Mhm.
The preparation that you said that you saw when you're on your walks and you see those soldiers in full gear, nobody else is watching that. They're
Right.
preparing themselves for whatever the next possible step is.
Mhm.
They may not have to take that. They may not have to take that road or that preparation, but if it happens, then they're ready. So
Yes.
I had to take all of that training that I had, all of that preparedness, all of that mental and physical strength that I had, and say, okay, what do I do? Where do I fit now? And at the time, that's when I was in the reserves, and so I was working front desk at a hotel, and I was like, well, I kind of like this. I like working with people, and this
Mhm.
is good. And then I ended up working an event where the Fayetteville Chamber was hosting an event,
Okay.
and I ended up catching the eye of somebody, and she came up to me and she says, I want you to, can you have lunch with me sometime within the next 2 to 3 days? And I was like, okay, that's fine. I don't know why, but sure. And again, I was still young enough to not really realize what was happening in my community. So I still felt very isolated and still in this place of, I was just not sure where I was going to end up. And then after I had been so sure and was like, yes, this is my path, this is what I'm doing. So then I had the opportunity to interview and ended up eventually working for the Chamber of Commerce for 8 years.
Okay. And that's probably, I'm trying to think if that's where I first met you. I know it was along the realms of business. So I'm not sure if it was when you were at the chamber or when you were working at the hotel, but knew nothing about this military. I'm still trying to digest that.
I get it. I mean, it's something that, I guess I'm a quiet soldier.
Yes.
Where, my dad will tell me that sometimes he called me one day a tiger. And I was like, I don't know how to take that. And he says, no, he goes, you really observe. You observe your environment and where you are. And, I don't explode with the energy unless it's something that is a need, so the fact that some people may not have known that I was in, I get it. Because it was also like, well, I'm going to just kind of tiger. My dad just kind of hang back. But I knew that part of me was so special and powerful to me that it was also difficult to share that was a part of me, and then how my journey ended up ending, because I was still processing it at that time as well. That was like I said before, that was tough to hear. Like, what do you mean I can't do this? I can do this.
Right.
And like, your mind is saying, no, I can't do this. And your body is saying, no, you cannot. And then getting the two of them on the same page, that's a tough process.
Yeah. For folks that are just joining us, we're here with Tara Barlett, who is a Rhode Island native. Yay. And moved to Fayetteville and is now back in New England area with all of this snow. And Tara's just been sharing with us her journey through the military. So if you missed the beginning, please make sure you go back and watch. And for those of you watching this on the replay, please make sure you share it out. So Tara, we have a question here from Deb Franklin. And she wants to know, couldn't your military training or skills be interpreted into a civilian job?
It can. It does depend on the job. So there are some jobs that are very military specific, and then there are some jobs that can translate and transfer very well from the military to civilian life. And how do you transfer a parachute rigger to somebody who wants to also potentially work in business?
Yeah.
There's a lot that you learn that you can develop in the military that helps change who you are within your core, within yourself. And then you can take those skills with you to a civilian job, because what is the main thing that you learn in military training? Discipline, integrity, loyalty, etc. Those elements, those don't go away.
Right.
The job specifics may go away, but those core elements, what they instill in you in training, that does not go away.
Okay. That's so good. And I know on ONET, there's always updates. There's a section that is geared toward military veterans and helping them match up their skills in the military to current job opportunities, job descriptions that are available in the United States. And if I get a chance, if I don't put that in the show notes, I'll make sure that I share that with people, because I think that's important that people know that there is a place to do it. And I know they're doing more here in Fayetteville. I'm always reading about different opportunities where they're working to help soldiers who are transitioning out of the service. So again, there are opportunities there. And again, it depends on what's available, what somebody wants to be their next step. But like you said, it for you, it took some time transitioning because your mind wasn't there yet, even though your body was saying, oh yeah, we're there. So that makes it that, and when I talk to people that have performed military service, I hear the same thing. I mean, it really is a commitment. It really is a dedication. I think it takes a special person to be part of the military. So I thank you for your service.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So now you're working for the chamber. Tell us about that.
The chamber, I started off, it was actually, again, with being in the military, I had set up through my job when I was working at the hotel. I knew I was going to be gone for 3 weeks. I was going on an annual training. I was going to be gone. They had already set everything up for me to be away for that time period, so I could go do my training, not worry, and come back and have my job. Well, I had met with a representative from the chamber. She and I went to lunch, and she had talked to me about becoming the receptionist there. And I was like, well, okay, let me see what this is,
Right.
all about. And so I ended up, having the interview. It was so funny. I was leaving the very next day. I said, your timing is terrible. I'm leaving in a day and a half. I'm going to be gone for 3 weeks. Like, the position's not going to be available. Just forget me. Move on. And she said she was so adamant about having me within that role that when she passed my contact information on to who eventually became my supervisor, she called me and she said, I don't care how you come in here. I just need you to come here. I said, I have probably like 30 minutes in between. And she was like, I'll take it. That's fine. I ended up interviewing. Never ever do this, you guys. But I ended up interviewing in a t-shirt and jeans because, again, I was ready to go. I was heading out and running errands, and I ended up meeting with them. I met with who my supervisor was, and then the president of the chamber at the time. And I'm like, this is not going to happen. And I did the interview, and by the time I got home, they were calling me saying that, yes, they would be willing to wait for me to come back. Great. Yes, they wanted to have me at the position. And would it be okay if I could start, as soon as I got back? And I was like, I'm going to need a couple. They were absolutely willing to work with everything. And then I was like, well, let me tell my job because they're, we'll see what they want to do. And I was, again, already going to be gone for 3 weeks. And so I was like, I think you guys just want to maintain what you put in place for me to be gone. There's another opportunity that I think I'm going to pursue. And I started as a receptionist at the Chamber of Commerce, and I was able to work my way up to director of membership.
Great. That is fantastic. That is fantastic. So how long were you there? Because I know
8 years.
8 years. Wow. Long 8 years. I think that's how I met you, because that's what you were doing. I don't know if you were the director at that time, but I know you were definitely affiliated with hospitality services.
Yes.
At a hotel. And I remember just when I first met you, I just thought you were so poised and sophisticated.
Thank you. You make me blush.
I said, oh, look at this young woman. I said, she's out here doing it. I said, this is great. This is great. So someone in the audience has a question. I know. And she just says, you mentioned your dad a couple of times, and just want to know if you will say what your dad does.
My father is a chauffeur out in California, out in the Bay Area. And again, I grew up with single mom, so I have a separate relationship with my dad and a separate relationship with my mom. And so there are also those things where it's kind of like how little kids, they know who to talk to dad about and who to talk to mom about if there's something you want to get done. But yeah, my dad was really understanding about my journey of wanting to go into the military and different things. He would ask me the question, okay, so what's the plan? You want to do this? Okay, so what's the plan? What's the vision here? What's the thought? And having that type of questioning really just kind of allowed me to kind of stop and think about where this whole thing was going to go, right? I'm not just going to, well, I can't say jump out of airplanes because I did that, but I'm not going to go off and be reckless. So, and I think that was just I loved that question that he would always ask me. So what are you going to get from this? What's going to happen here? What's the next step? What are you going to do? And so I've always kind of been forward thinking. And now in my age, it's kind of like a natural thing. Okay, well, here's the situation. What am I going to do next? Right. What is the goal? What is the plan? What is the objective? And even my dad, he wasn't in the military, but he kind of helped me in my military career with having that type of mindset as well, because yes, I did end up getting hurt. I was still, after I was healing and trying to figure that out, okay, what's the next step? What's my next step? What do I want to do? Where do I want to be? And again, I just kept pushing,
Yes. And again, that military training, but it seems like there was something that you had in you anyway, because you realized that when you were a teenager in Rhode Island, when you were a young woman in Rhode Island, that you needed to do something differently, and that staying in Rhode Island wasn't going to work for you at that point in your life. And that's a big step to take, because I know for me, coming from Rhode Island, moving to North Carolina, that's culture shock.
Oh yeah.
Culture shock, and always having lived in New England and moved to the South, it's like, whoa,
yes,
what happened here?
Yes, absolutely. You nailed it.
Yes, definitely culture shock. So you were at the hotel for 8 years. So what happened in your career after that?
So I was at the chamber for 8 years, and the chamber was going through their own changes. And so at this time, this word sequestration was swirling around Fort Bragg. Yeah, you're nodding. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And so the chamber, if a lot of people don't know, most chambers of commerce are nonprofit organizations. We rely on the dues and funds from outside businesses and members to sustain us. And at the time, I was like, this is probably not going to bode well for me. But at the same time of having that thought, again, just being out there and networking and knowing the community and the different events. And I had somebody that had reached out to me that was working at the hotel. And they said, hey, listen, and without her knowing what was going on with me, hey, listen, I just kind of put in my notice, and I'm wondering if you would maybe be interested in doing this job. And I said, yeah, sure, I'll come and I'll take a look and see what happens. And I went and I interviewed, and I knew that they were interviewing other people.
Right.
I went in, I interviewed, and I was like, okay. And eventually my job at the chamber did come to an end. And I called the general manager at the hotel, and I said, okay, listen, I can start working for you whenever you want. And at this moment, what was really, I saw as embarrassing for me, ended up being a blessing, because again, with the chamber being a nonprofit, everything that happened was pretty public. So my layoff was very public. It was in the paper.
Yeah.
I was like, that's not great. But what came from that is I got phone calls and emails from people that were just like, will you send me a resume? We want you to work for us. We want you to work here. So I ended up having a lot of opportunity where I was sitting back and I'm like, I have an offer to do events. I have an offer to do hotels. I have an offer to do this. And I said to myself, I want to be able to work at a place that I can take anywhere, that I can go anywhere, will still allow me the opportunity to see the world, kind of travel and grow. I said, where does that sound like? Hospitality. It sounds like hotels. And this time I was able to go, I got the job. I was able to go in as a director of sales, which gives you, with that level of management going in, and then having the type of contacts that I had because I had worked with the Chamber of Commerce. Now I'm learning all of this stuff. I was set up for success. And I was like, oh, okay, I can do this. It's just, it's the one thing with all the people. And just getting people into the hotel. And I loved it. I did. I loved it so much.
Yeah, we could tell people that were around you could tell how much you loved it because you were always beaming anyway. But when you spoke about, I know at some of our networking events, people would get up and speak about their business of the type of work that they were doing or their careers. You were always so passionate about what you were doing, excited about what you were doing, and just made it sound like, wow, that's a career that can really take you places and help you grow and learn and what have you. And I love what I'm hearing because when I meet with young people who are thinking about going into hospitality and what have you, they're usually starting off with the 4-year college degree in hospitality or what have you. You had mentioned earlier, having been able to being accepted to Johnson and Wales, but not being able to attend. And Johnson and Wales is kind of known as the hospitality college, even though they have so many other majors, that's what people know about Johnson and Wales. So what I love about this is you showing that a college degree isn't always the only path. As much as I'm a big proponent of college, and I love, you'll tell us more about where you are now with that. But I love that people can find their career pathways by other means. By other means. So this is great. And I think young people need to hear this.
I mean, hospitality is a great way to be able to find success without a degree. But it was still something I wanted. I mean, even though I had that success, I still had that goal for myself.
Yes.
That's what I wanted. I knew that I could become successful still, but I knew that I still wanted it. And so there are different times that I would try to see like, oh, can I take a class here? Can I take a class there? And at the time, my daughter was a lot younger. Her dad and I were in a relationship, and it just was it was busy. It's a busy world to be a part of. And so I was like, I couldn't do it at the time. But it led to a lot of great opportunity. I found a lot of success there. You get to use your voice. You get to use your creative side. You get to use your operational side. So there's a lot of different ways that you can see, well, am I a logistics person? Am I a salesperson? Am I into marketing? Am I into accounting? Hospitality is a great way to figure out your path because there's everything within that building that you're doing that you'll be able to touch on. So maybe it's human resources, maybe it's accounting, billing, etc. But you'll be able to touch on it at some point while you're in hospitality.
So how much of your military training do you think helped prepare you for a career in hospitality?
I think the discipline, having, I won't say the military taught me to have a thick skin, but you become thick-skinned in the military. And then in the world of sales, being able to, my whole thing when it comes to sales, and this is even on my LinkedIn profile, is I want to sell you something. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to sell you anything that I wouldn't want for myself. And I want to be able to know, and I have enough integrity within myself to say, if this is not the right deal, if this is not the right plan for you, I'm going to tell you. And having testimony from other people that have worked for me that can even say, Tara presented me with what she could do. It's the best. I have recommended other people. You're better where you currently are. If you're looking for another change, this is my contact information. You'll know where I be. That's the type of salesperson that I am. And I think that having that type of integrity was definitely instilled in me from the military and just carried me through.
Okay. That partially answers the question that our audience viewer, Develina, asked, but what are some of the personal and professional skills that you naturally have developed that allowed your career to develop in the way it did? And you just mentioned integrity. That's huge.
It is.
It's huge.
When you're dealing with hospitality or any type of level of management, you start to become privy to sensitive information. Especially when you're working in hospitality, you have a lot of credit card information there. You cannot be untrustworthy and have access to this information. It does not work. So you have to be able to show that you can be trusted with the sensitive information that's going to be happening your way. You're going to have pretty much talking about the function of the hotel, which could mean dollars. And that information you're going to be hearing. If you're running to the next person to tell people, how much your revenue is and where you are and all of that stuff, then that's not the type of, first of all, that's not the type of person that I am. That's not the type of reputation that I want to have. And I want to be able to be trusted with that information because I have a vision of success for myself. And nobody will be able to say, they heard whatever rumor from Tara. No, you didn't. No. Because
Yes.
I have enough integrity to say no.
That is so good. And Debelina, thank you for that question. That was a great question. As Deborah said, it is a really good question. So when did you leave? I didn't even realize you had left North Carolina until I was reading your LinkedIn profile again. And I'm like, I was wondering why I hadn't seen Tara in a while.
I did another another server. I ended up leaving in, was it 2016? Towards the end of 2016.
Okay.
And I came up here. Luckily, I needed to be closer to family. There were relatives in my family that I just needed to be closer to at the time. And it was a lot, as you know, coming back and forth and traveling with the family to come back up. And so at the time, I had already been at the hotel for about 3 years. And that's typically the lifespan of a director of sales, 3 to 5 years at a hotel before they're at the same hotel, at the same property. Before they're looking to see, I want to be able to grow. You should always want to continuously evolve. Okay. If you feel like you're not evolving or growing or learning something new or something different, it's not a bad thing to look towards the next step and see what that is. And for me at that time, it was to leave. And when you were fast forwarding to this point in my life, my daughter's father and I, we were not together. I didn't have any family down and any blood family down in North Carolina that was near me. And looking at what the next step was for me. And I said, okay, I know if I moved closer to home, I'd have a little bit more opportunity. That I'd have some support and let me see what is different up here. So I did make the move. And again, there was a culture shock coming from New England back down south. But I had been there for so long that even coming back up north, I was like, what's happening? But it was, I ended up going into a hotel after being up here, after moving back right outside of Boston. And all of the things that it's completely different. The way that they sell is different. And so there was a learning curve, and I was just like, okay, well, let me see this. The hotel and the company that I was working for at the time, although it was a great company, didn't fit me. And I think we mutually parted ways because I think we knew that it just did not fit me. And that's okay. It's okay to say that. Employers have 60 to 90 days to see if you're a right fit for them. But at the same time, you should also be seeing if you're the right fit for them.
Exactly.
And will it work? And what happened is I ended up working at a full service hotel in Boston, in the city of Boston. And this is when I became a business travel sales manager. So my responsibility was working with those top 500 companies that you hear, those Fortune 500 companies, because they're right down the street. And they're coming into Logan and they're doing business in Boston. And so you have to elevate. You have no choice but to elevate. And you have to be able to sell yourself, and you have to be able to say, okay, I'm going to put myself out there this way. I'm going to put myself out there that way. And here's how I'm going to become. All doing this all without losing who you are, because you don't want to misrepresent yourself. You still want to have that truth and that integrity while still doing this job where you're saying, okay, I know that if these type of companies are looking for this. A lot of my business was conducted via email. Why? Because they're top 500, Fortune 500 companies. they don't want to see me. So the level of selling is totally and completely different. And so
Yes.
being able to adjust so that way you can elevate, that's what you do. And hospitality is an industry that's always evolving. They're changing their technologies, they're taking feedback from guests, employees, and they're just elevating. They're changing with the times. I mean, constantly you're hearing about the new things that you can do at a hotel. So ended up having that job. And then luckily for me, because that one was in Boston, there was another hotel that was really close by. And if you know anything about New England, if you can find a job that's closer to home, you kind of take that one.
Yes.
Reduce that commute.
Yeah.
But I ended up finding a job that was exact same brand, exact same position, closer to home. And I was able to make this pivot and jumped right into that one. And I did that until COVID hit.
Yes. And then COVID. That is that 5-letter word, COVID. It just caused us all to live in ways we had not expected to live.
Absolutely.
So how did COVID affect you career-wise?
So my last day at my hotel, and I will never forget, was March 16th, 2020.
Ugh.
So as the business travel sales manager, I stated earlier, my job was to connect with all of those companies that have people traveling and coming into the area. They are all starting to shut down. They're not sending people anymore. Nobody's traveling. And I remember for the first week and a half, because COVID actually kind of kicked off in Boston, because it happened there was a convention that had happened in Boston that had hundreds of people, if not thousands of people, that were attending this conference. And then this is when the COVID outbreak kind of started. So not only did we have it where it was like this huge public health crisis, but now it's also, oh my gosh, this happened in hotels. Like, what type of damage control do we have to do here to show? But I remember gearing up. We were I knew that my hours were going to be reduced. We had talked about that because I didn't have clients coming in anymore. I didn't have to host anybody. So I knew that within our sales team, our hours were going to be cut. Okay. Did not know that was going to be the last day that I saw my colleagues. So I knew when I got home, okay, I'm off tomorrow, but I'll go back in. I got a phone call from my director saying, listen, things have not changed. Give us time to figure it out. We're going to call everybody at the end of the week and figure it out. And at the end of the week, I got the call saying, we're going to just furlough everybody for 60 days. That was the plan. And at first you're like, okay, I can do 60 days. Until 60 days became 90, 120. And I remember I was stir crazy. I'm like, I have no idea when I'm going back to work. Things are just getting worse. Business is not going to be what it was. My job, my position still isn't even available,
right?
Just because of the nature of my job. There are no business travel sales managers at the moment because companies are not sending their employees to travel. It's too much of a risk. So I remember one day of these many days after COVID hit, I was lazily watching TV. And I had seen a commercial about, earn your degree in 18 months. Like, 18 months? Well, let me see what this is. And I'll never forget, my husband was gone and my daughter was gone, which is probably why I was laying around just watching TV. Finally, don't have anything to do. And I started looking into it. And I said, well, I can take a couple of business courses because at this time it was the end of August. So I could take a couple of business courses. I'm not projected to go back to work until December anyway. If, I'm like, why don't I do this? I've always wanted to do this. Why don't I have nothing but time at this point? Yeah. So I said, okay. I applied for the FAFSA. I did the application. I did everything that normally takes months and months and months in 3 days. I remember I started the school semester September 9th, 2020. And I got a phone call on September 18th that my position is no longer going to be available, and I was officially laid off. So I said, okay, well, I used to work 50 hours a week plus go to the gym and host this and host that. School is my full-time job. That's it.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been doing since, honestly. And
fantastic.
This is my last semester. I get to earn my first ever degree. I'm so excited.
Yes.
I cannot wait. And throughout all of this, you know, we had such a global social awakening with the racial inequalities. And it changed my view and changed my path. So now I want to go into diversity, equality, and inclusion.
Mm.
I am taking my sales experience that I have. I'm going to take my new education that I have earned, and I am going to go and I want to work in DEI. I want to work in the field to help encourage companies to become a more inclusive environment for their employees.
Oh, that is so good, and that so segues right into Deborah's comment here. You know, she's saying she heard on NPR earlier today a question about can we find a Black woman qualified to serve as a Supreme Court justice, and she goes, you know, she has rocks in her cheeks listening to Tara, because Tara, I mean, you jumped out of airplanes, you were a parachute rigger. I mean, and then you took that and pivoted into hospitality, and then kept it moving. You know, you never said, "Ugh, yeah, I'm not going to do this." You know, you kept it going. So again, you know, I agree with what Deborah said. You know, the moderator should have said, you know, "Are you kidding?" Of course. Of course. And that doesn't mean, you know, there's that, you know, stereotype out there, you know, Black women are super women and what have you. No, we're not super women. We're human just like everyone else, but we're intelligent.
Yeah.
We know how to get things done.
Yeah.
You know, just like anyone else. And that's part of why I love having these conversations, because I think it's so important for young folks out there and some older folks to see that Black and brown people are out here taking care of business, because representation matters.
Absolutely.
You know, people have heard the story. You know, I didn't have my first Black teacher until I was in 7th grade. And so many times as a professional in Rhode Island, I might have been a minority of one. I might have been the only one sitting around the table with my skin color. A lot of times, you know, it would be 2 for 1 because they'd get a female and a Black person. So, you know, that would just fit their checklist quite a bit. But I knew that was the nature of things. But however, you know, as you said, I love the idea that you're going to take your experience and all that you've learned and go into that realm of diversity, equity, and inclusion, because it is so important.
Absolutely.
It is so important. I saw this wonderful T-shirt on LinkedIn recently, and I said, I've got to get one of those for me. And it said, I can explain it to you, but I can't help you understand.
Yeah.
And that is so, so true.
Yeah.
That is so true. That is, it just makes me crazy about it. So you also mentioned in your bio that you're interested in mental wellness, mental health. So tell us a little bit about that. How do you keep yourself on as much of an even keel as you can? I mean, we all have days where we're like a little, but how do you keep yourself mentally well?
Well, I think especially during COVID, I had to kick in my own mental wellness journey into high gear pretty early on, when I was leading such a fast-paced life, and it all went stop. Yeah. And I didn't know what to do with myself. You know, I I remember at the beginning of the pandemic, I was like, I'll teach myself how to juggle. But I've always been somebody that likes to be active, that likes to be moving and going. And whether it's being physically active, whether it's being mentally active, whether it's knowing when you need a break, when to take a pause, all of those things matter. And all of those things are so important to be able to just say, I need a minute. I need a minute, and vocalizing that we need a minute. So my family will probably tell you that I'll be like, can we take a pause for a second? okay, I am starting to feel overwhelmed. You're presenting me with a lot of information, and I'm trying to mentally prioritize what needs to be done. Which Tara do you need at the moment? Because I want to be there for you, but I need to know what my mental capacity is. And being able to be open about what I can take in, and then allowing my family to also open up with me about where they are, has really, really changed the way that we communicate. I mean, we're really just opening ourselves up and doing whatever there were days we could go and not go outside.
Yes.
And we're like, what are we doing? Let's go outside. Let's go for a walk. And a 10-minute walk that you would take around the block ended up turning into, we went down the street and had lunch and, or we grabbed something to eat and was heading back to the house. But really just taking a minute to say, where am I? What can I do? What do I need? What don't I need?
Right.
And really just kind of being vocal about it in a way that you're comfortable with, because everybody has their own level of comfortability when it comes to that. I know I'm comfortable with saying, I would love to be able to help, but I can't take this on right now.
Yes.
Not saying sorry for extending myself so thin, just being like, wow, that feels great. To just be like, I appreciate the invitation. Include me in the next one.
Yes.
Not having to give so oftentimes if we're like, we made plans, we don't want to go, we're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to go. What am I going to say? Who can I, shift this blame on?
Yes.
We've all done it. And I've just gotten to the point where I've said, I appreciate you inviting me out tonight, but I'm not going to be able to make it. Can we reschedule for another day? No excuses, no, over explaining, just saying, here's where I am. I'd love to get to see you again, but we have to do it another time.
Yes, that is so true. We do. My cousin actually sent me an article about spreading yourself too thin, and I'll actually probably put the link to that article in the show notes. But I have been practicing saying that no is a complete sentence.
Yes.
I don't have to say anything, just no. And I love what you said about, because we do. I know I would get into that. I would say to people, give them this big explanation why I couldn't do it, because I felt bad, because I felt like I was letting somebody down, because I didn't have like 28 hours in the 24-hour day. And there would be times I would be doing something and I would be so mad at myself. Like, why did you say yes to that? You have too much on your plate already. So now I'm getting really good at saying just what you said. No, thank you. Maybe another time. And I actually just had to say that to someone the other day that asked me about doing another professional development activity. But we have to think about our mental health.
Absolutely.
We have to think about our mental health. I know here in North Carolina and nationwide, people have heard about Chesley Chris, and who died by suicide, who was actually had been Miss North Carolina, Miss USA. And it's so important that anyone that is feeling overwhelmed, doesn't have a place to talk, to know that we have a resource like the National Suicide Hotline at 800-273-8255. So if you're someone that's out there that's feeling overwhelmed, feeling like you don't have another place to go, please know that this is available to you 24/7, because it's so important that we get the help we need, and that we stop the stigma of shame around it. It's really important.
Stopping the stigma within the Black and Brown community. And
yes,
that is another big thing on why I will come forward and say, I am in therapy. I enjoy, not, really enjoy, but to me, there's nothing wrong with being in therapy. And it's not saying that there's something wrong with me. It's saying, can you give me the tools that I need to say no? can you give me the tools or some other language of how I can just keep it moving,
Right.
but not overextending myself, because I need to still be me. I still
Right.
need to be me. And because not only am I Tara, but I'm mom, I'm wife,
Mhm.
I'm student, I'm daughter, I am sister. And so I need to make sure that I'm balanced.
Yes. Yes. We can't pour from an empty cup. We
Exactly.
cannot pour from an empty cup. So it's so important that we have those conversations. That's why I love my walks in the morning with my cousin Angela. Um, we solve the problems of the world in that 4 mile walk. But one of the great things about the walk that we really love is it puts us, because the Cape Fear River Trail, for people that aren't familiar with it, is this fantastic wooded trail that starts on one end at Methodist University and goes over to the other end to the Clark Park Nature Center. And they actually have extended it through downtown. We haven't been on that end yet. But I mean, there are days we'll be walking and we have to stop because there a family of deer are crossing the path.
Wow.
And just to sit there and take that time. The other day we were walking and we saw a beaver in the pond. It was the first time in almost a year that we've been walking there that we saw a beaver. We're like, oh my goodness. We saw it the other day, and then a couple of weeks ago we saw a woodpecker. A huge woodpecker too. So we just stopped and just took it all in.
Yeah.
Because we don't give ourselves those opportunities to just stop and breathe.
Exactly.
And that's what that walk is for us. Sometimes we're coming up those hills, we're breathing a little heavy, but it also allows us to see things and to start our day that way, And it works having a partner, because I know she's waiting on me. She knows I'm waiting on her. So it works out well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's so nice. So folks, so again, remember, there's always help out there. So please make sure that you seek help if you feel you need someone to talk to. So Tara, I always like to ask my guests, because you've been wonderful. We've been over an hour. I always ask my
thank
guests
you. That went so fast.
I know it does. So just like sitting around the kitchen table. I always ask my guests about a book that they would recommend. And you did recommend one.
Mm-hmm.
Oops, I think I wrote part of it wrong here. So Uncomfortable Conversations with the Black Man. So actually what I have on here is the YouTube. You can watch his talks on YouTube, but he has a book.
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit about why you chose that particular book?
I chose this book. I read it in between all the other readings that I have to do. But there was, he had, Emmanuel Ancho is the author, a former NFL player. He had this segment on Instagram that I would see, and he would answer a question. And I'm like, yes, that's what I've been thinking, but I didn't know how to say it. I couldn't quite put it into words on how you feel, because a lot of the conversation around race, equality, etc., it is uncomfortable. Anytime you're talking about making a change, whether it be to somebody's gender, class, it's uncomfortable.
Yes, it
And
is.
the people that are more vulnerable to that type of conversation, I feel that a lot of times we can lead with anger. And what I loved so much about his book is that he took that question and said, okay. And then he would articulate it in a way that you're like, oh my, this is exactly what I've been trying to say. He takes the emotion out of it. He takes that anger out of it as a person of color. He takes that part of it out, and he says, imagine this type of situation. Imagine feeling this. And he allows you to create other scenarios where you can relate it a little bit more. So he can relate it to growing up in Texas, being in the NFL, being from Nigeria, even just the term African American versus Black, all of that is in there. And I just found that as I was reading that book, it gave me the tools to communicate to when I had other people that were asking me, well, Tara, how come this is wrong? Or why are people saying this? And Do you feel this way? And do you feel that way? After reading that book, and even while I was reading the book, I was able to say, yes, I do. I do feel this in this particular way. Here's why. And there's been different times that I've quoted some of the material that he's written about. And yeah, it's just an excellent, excellent book. I think if you are ever approached with a question about, race, etc., it gives you a good foundation to have something to talk about that can be relatable to other people. I think it's fantastic. He did a great job with the book. He did a great job with the series. And I even lent it to a friend of mine. He has it right now. And I was like, what do you think about it? I'd love to talk to you and hear your thoughts. And she's like, my husband is reading it right now. And so,
Yes.
and it's just one of those books where what I like to do when I'm reading a book is I'll take notes, I write in it.
I know.
And, I passed along that book with my notes, with my handwriting, etc., kind of with the understanding that they're going to see that I've underlined something 3 times.
Yes.
Where, yes, this has happened to me. My little comments, my little statements. But I think his book is a great way for anybody that is interested in becoming an ally for the Black and Brown community.
Okay.
Start here.
Okay. Yes, it is a wonderful book. It is a wonderful book, and the way he is able to answer the questions, because like you said, it is uncomfortable, but that's almost okay, because if it wasn't uncomfortable, we wouldn't be in this situation. Now we're in a situation, we this is our history, and you can stick your neck in the sand and pretend this isn't the history of the United States, but it is.
Right.
So now we have to deal with it. Now, we are in the middle of a racial reckoning again. Let's hope that this time it ends differently, or that it brings about those types of changes that we need. We have a comment from a audience member who says, this was absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much, Jan. This was, again, it was like sitting around the kitchen table with your girlfriend, just having a conversation. So I certainly appreciate this. Folks that are able to share this out, please make sure you share this out with people, because I think it's so important that, again, we understand that hashtag representation matters. It's really, really important that we do this. As always, if people are interested in college and career counseling, you can always check me out. I do have openings now, starting with 10th and 11th grade classes. And if you're interested in getting a little bit more information by way of a newsletter, this is the URL from the Steps newsletter. Actually, I just will be sending out this weekend the February edition. So check that out. And just thank you, everyone. Oh, Jan said she shared out the conversation. So thank you, Jan. I appreciate that. That is so important. Tara, I can't thank you enough for being here. This was, for folks who don't know, when I reach out to people, it's people that usually it's people I know. Every now and then my son or my good friend Antoinette will find somebody for me. But a lot of times I reach out to people that have crossed paths, or I know them, and people have been so generous with their time. So generous with their time, because this is a volunteer thing. So I really appreciate Tara being here. If people want to get in touch with Tara and say, hey, nice job, really love what you did, this is her LinkedIn. You can reach her on LinkedIn. And again, Tara, I am just overwhelmed with gratitude for your generosity and sharing your story with everyone, your ability to help young folks see that there are different pathways. Everybody doesn't follow the same path.
Right.
And I think it's so important for them to see that and to know that there's value in every path that you take. So again, thank you so much. Deborah saying that this was awesome. Yes, she was awesome. Wasn't she, Deborah? She was really awesome. So I am just grateful Grateful for
As
the
am I.
conversation.
Thank you so much for reaching out to me. I really am, appreciate the opportunity, and this has been great.
And a fellow Rhode Islander. Oh,
I
that makes me even happier.
know.
That's just like the icing on the cake.
Mhm.
And we have one last thing. Yep, Tara, thank you for your service and your continued career exploration. Yes, definitely,
Thank you.
definitely. So, folks, we are coming to the end of this college and career conversation. I hope you will join me next Monday evening for another college and career conversation with Dr. B. And have a fantastic evening. And please make sure you take care of yourself. If you need to talk to someone, please make sure you talk to someone. If you don't have someone readily available to talk to, please call the National Suicide Hotline at 800-273-8255. We've got to take care of each other. So again, thank you so much. Tara, stay on for a minute. Thank you so much, everyone. And I will see you next week.